Today, I'm going to show you how to make a delicious and versatile veggie stock out of veggie scraps. Stock is often called for in a variety of recipes, making rice, other types of grains like quinoa as the base for soups and stews. A lot of times you can just use water if you want, but having a really nice, flavorful stock takes any dish that would otherwise use water up to the next level. The good thing is that it's crazy easy to make stock, and especially veggie stock. And you don't have to go out and buy a bunch of extra ingredients. You can actually make it from veggie scraps. Now these are the remnants or leftovers of other dishes I've made. So these are the stems of kale that I use for kale salad. These are the stalks of broccoli that I use for stir fry. Here I have some purple carrot peels for a carrot dish I made. Some cilantro and parsley stalks left over from a relish. And then the core of a cauliflower and pieces of onion and some garlic cloves. Here's the garlic clove right here. And other goodies that are just left over from cooking. So you don't have to throw that stuff away. It also doesn't have to go directly into the compost. It can take one little pit stop before going into the earth as veggie stock. So what's in the veggie stock formula? It's a pretty generic, basic sort of thing. You can really put anything in veggie stock. As long as it's a vegetable, it can go in there. There's just a few things that you probably shouldn't put in veggie stock. One of those things are nightshade greens. So nightshades are tomatoes, peppers, potatoes, and eggplants. The green part of these plants has toxins in it, so you don't want to put that in your veggie stock. The tomato itself is fine, potato itself is fine, the eggplant chunks or peels are fine. It's just that green part you kind of want to leave out, have that go right into the compost. I personally like a nice mix of things in my veggie stock. I like to make sure I have some garlic, I have some onions, I like to make sure I have some kind of herbs in there. Like I said, the stems of cilantro, parsley. You can put the stems of other herbs like rosemary stems or the stems of thyme if you use thyme for a dish. If you're not quite ready and don't have enough veggie pieces and herbs and things to make your stock, you can always take these, put them in a jar, fill it up, and stick it in your freezer. And then once you have enough, like a full packed jar of frozen veggie scraps, you can dump that into your pot to make your stock. There are some other things that I like to amend the stock with. So I'll have all my veggies that are left over from my cooking, and then I like to add a few more extra things just to give it a little bit more oomph. One of those things, and it's not mandatory, but it does take it up quite a notch, are dried mushrooms. I love dried mushrooms, and I highly recommend stocking them in your pantry. They're great for making their own stocks and sauces, and just like one or two little pieces of dried mushroom will add that rich aroma and a little bit of umami to your stock. The other thing I like to add are bay leaf. I like to add some peppercorns. I also like to add some allspice berries. So these are all things that add more aromatic flavor to the broth. Also, if you do eat cheese, the rind of Parmesan can also go in your stock, and it adds a bit of richness and flavor to your stock as well. So go ahead and throw that in your jar in your freezer, or throw it right into your veggie stock. So now that I've gotten my veggie scraps, my herbs, my spices all assembled, and I've got a nice quantity of it here to fill up my pot, I'm ready to go. And the good thing is, this is super, super easy. I'm gonna show you. Step one, take your veggie scraps, put them in your pot. Step two, add enough water to cover. Step three, turn on the fire. And step four is bring it up to a boil and let the stock boil for about 45 minutes. If you're always using organic vegetables, you are making organic veggie stock. And it's free. It's essentially the leftovers of whatever else you've been cooking, and you get this delicious, high quality, nutritious veggie stock for free instead of paying like $4 a carton for it. Alternatively, if you have access to a slow cooker, you can do the same recipe by chucking all of your veggie scraps into the slow cooker, covering it with water and turning it on low for about 8 hours. That's what I like to do. I just turn it on at night before I go to bed, and in the morning my stock's ready to go, and I put it in the fridge, and then I have stock for the week. The other important thing to know is that we're not making soup. What we're making is a very flavorful, aromatic liquid that we're gonna use in other dishes. So it's very important not to salt anything you're making right now. We wanna salt the dishes we're gonna make with the stock. One other thing that I love about making veggie stock is that it makes really good use of stuff that's about to die in my fridge or in the pantry. So sometimes I'll have onions that are starting to sprout, or garlic that's going green, or I'll just have like some rosemary or thyme or other herbs and things that, I didn't need that much of it. And veggie stock is a great way to use those things up. I'll take them, I'll chuck them in the freezer, which stops their, growing or fermenting process. And then they're ready to use to make a delicious stock afterwards. So it definitely helps to reduce a lot of waste. And it also makes an even better, more delicious, flavorful broth. Our stock has been boiling for about 45 minutes to an hour. It's not like a hard stop. You can boil it for longer, you can boil it for a little less. The longer you boil it, the more intense the flavors will be. The shorter you boil it, the more like fresh it'll taste. So mine's been boiling for about 45 minutes to an hour. So I'm gonna cut the heat and I'm gonna strain it over my jar, and just to get the juices in there. So I'm gonna carefully do this. You should probably do this over the sink if you're at home. Try not to do it like this. I got skills though, check it out. Very pleased with myself that I didn't spill any yet. And you wanna stop short of the top of the jar. Why is that? Because if you wanna freeze this, it's water. What happens to water when it freezes? It expands. I've done this enough times to tell you that if you fill it all the way to the top or even to the top rim, it'll explode your jar. And you'll end up with broken glass and drippy stock all over your freezer. So don't do that. Leave lots of room for the liquid to expand in the jar. Alternatively, if you don't want to worry about that, you can always use plastic containers. We strained our stock, we put it in our jar, and now I'm gonna let it cool. I like to let mine cool at room temperature in the house before I put it in the fridge. The reason I do that is because this is boiling hot liquid, and if I put it in my fridge right now, it's gonna lower the temperature of the fridge, and my fridge is gonna work extra hard to cool it down. Another way you can stick with glass and not worry about things exploding is to use a really high quality glass vessel like a Pyrex or one of those kind of containers that can handle the pressures of being frozen and defrosted all the time. As you can see, I have a lovely golden, dark, kind of like deep brown stock going on here. And people have asked me before about the color. It really depends what you put in your stock. Onion peels, the dry, papery brown peels of onions, have a pigment in them that will keep your stock nice and brown. If you don't have anything like that in your stock, it'll probably stay like a really light honey color. Other things that could possibly change the color of your stock are if you use a lot of fresh greens, like leafy greens, they can turn it a bit of a green color. Beets will turn it a little bit pink. Blue cabbage or purple cabbage will turn it a little bit blue. It'll probably come out just like really like a darker color. Purple things like purple carrots will also pigment your stock. If you're trying to make a dish and the color is super important to you and you want a certain color to the finished product, then think about that when you're storing your scraps and making your stock. Another way you can store it that other people do is to store it in really small containers. So I've seen people take small containers that are about a cup or so in size and store stock that way so that they have it in little single serving portions, frozen and ready to go when they're making dishes. So now you have this abundance of liquid gold in your freezer, in your fridge. How do you use it? I love to use this as the liquid base for rice dishes, for risottos, for polenta. I like to use it as the base for soups. if I'm making like a veggie puree or another kind of soup, this is so much better than water. Remember, your veggie scraps can be used to make this delicious golden stock that can take a lot of your grain and soup dishes up to the next level. Don't throw it away.